Confidence and trust are two of the most important elements of success as a coach. In this video, we're going to break down how to be more confident as a coach by creating more trust in your clients. Like everybody who wants to be a coach, wants to build a coaching business, obviously wants to be successful. I think everybody understands that part of being successful is to be confident and to have certainty and to create attraction and get people to hire you, right? I mean, that's part of being a successful coach, obviously. But the way that most people are going about it from our lived and learned experience is not working. And all we got to take a look at is the amount of people who are truly succeeding as a coach, both tangibly and intangibly. And those two things go together. I think a lot of people don't do the things that would lead to the tangible success because they don't feel intangibly successful, meaning internally, they don't feel confident. Internally, they don't feel enough certainty that they can share their message regardless of other people's perceptions and whether people agree with them or not. So people are waiting for this internal permission in order to take external actions, and the external actions are required for the success, but people are not getting to that internal permission part. So we're going to break down the essence of truly deep rooted transformational confidence and certainty. Transformational for yourself as a coach, but also the kind of confidence and certainty that produces transformation in other people and will attract people who are looking for transformation. So 360 degrees inside of the transformational conversation. And I want to start with this phrase that we just talked about today, this dichotomy, like this perpetual conflict when it comes to the human growth journey and the way that people approach personal development. People approach it like there's a line to cross. And when they cross the line, they'll be done. Like there's a finish line. And so we think that there are these like little modules that we've got to finish. You know, it's funny. We've got all these modules in our online courses, and a lot of times they're called modules, which means that a lot of us have been programmed to use modular learning and therefore modular expectations. So we think our learning is just going to come in modules. And then when we're done with the module, we're done with the module, right? So we finish module 2 of our transformational journey, and then we're done. It's like we're done with second grade, and then we go on to third grade. And the personal development journey just doesn't work that way. It'd be nice if it did, and we could just check all these boxes. But that's not the way it works. And if you understand what learning looks like and feels like in any kind of journey that's going to grow you, then it'll be helpful when you hit the bumps in the road. And there will be bumps in the road. Sometimes the bumps will feel like walls that are impossible to overcome, but there will be turbulence. There has to be. There can't be growth without turbulence. There can't be growth without discomfort. So if you understand what this path is and what this journey looks like, then it'll be easier to accept, embrace, and keep going on this path. So what is personal development? Most people are looking at it or looking for it to be. You go ahead and say it because you're the one that said it earlier.
Yeah, personal development. Done.
So people think personal development should be personal done development.
That's
meaning
right.
I'm done with that.
I
did that. I'm done. And there's this line to cross. And once I cross the line, I'm finished.
Right.
In reality, there is a line to cross, but once you cross that line, you're beginning. There's a starting line to personal development. There's not a finish line, but there's a finish line to modular learning. And when we take that mindset of modular learning and apply it to the human growth journey, we're going to be wildly upset. We're going to be wildly disappointed and perpetually disappointed because there's going to be consistent frustration when you realize the human growth journey is not modular. And once you check something off of a certain box, there will be another box unchecked that will show up again, meaning that we're constantly going to be going through the washing machine of personal development. And hopefully that's empowering, actually, because when you go through the stuff that might be frustrating and disappointing to you, you'll recognize that's just the way this journey goes. That's what I signed up for. If you want the outcome of the path, you have to be willing to follow the path. Most people are wanting the outcome of the confident, certain leadership, transformational path, but they won't follow the requirement to get there. And a lot of times it's because they don't know what the requirements are. And that's mostly, I think, because they don't want it to be true. They want it to be, and I say we, I said they, but I mean we as humans, because I still don't want all the things that I teach to be true.
No.
My brain wants everything to be easy. My brain wants the shortcut. My brain wants to conserve energy. My brain doesn't want to experience the failure or to not know the answers. Our neurology as humans actually make this process difficult because it's in constant conflict with the truth. So the idea that we're going to transform through information is a perpetual dichotomous conflict, meaning these two things are opposing each other. You can't seek transformation through information only. But the modular learning tells us it's all about information. So you can be done with that. So you can go on to the next thing. So I can feel confident. So I can get rid of all my fears. So I can do Facebook Live. So I can do videos. So I can get up on stage. And so I can do all the things that I want to do because I've already completed the modules. That's not how it works. So what we want to do is give you a little dose of truth with love. And we want to dissect this information. We're both teachers. So we want to teach for understanding and implementation. So we also don't just modularly teach either, like in the form of, okay, taught you that, taught you that, taught you that. So we're going to deep dive, as we always do on these podcast episodes. If you want to speed us up, you can speed up the somewhere on your YouTube app. You can speed up the speed and maybe go through it a little bit faster if that helps you be a little bit more proficient. But we're gonna deep dive, and we want to open up awareness for you with this video, but we also want to give you a process, because the process to everything that we've been talking about is actually something that a lot of people are missing, or a lot of people are trying to avoid, which is the way to be a really, really confident coach is not through coaching. At least it's not through being the coach. The way to be really, really confident and certain as a coach is to be coached into your certainty and into your confidence. And a lot of people are just wanting the drive-through version. They're wanting the detour to coaching confidence. So let's break down a phrase that you said not too long ago. And all of this wisdom in this particular conversation is coming from our high-level coaching community, people that have committed to mastery level learning. They've done dozens and dozens and dozens of coaching hours. They're on the phone with you as a mentor coach, breaking down their coaching calls. Like, these are people that are dissecting at a deep, deep level the art, the science, and the essence of transformational coaching. And one of the perpetual conversations, it sounds like, that you're getting into is, what does it actually take to get to that level of confidence that so many people are wanting to get to. And so you made a statement not too long ago. I don't remember the context of it. You can fill that in, but it was, we have to learn how to coach like a client.
Yeah.
So share a little bit more about that. Like, what was the essence of the conversation, or just the, you know, the big realization you had to make that such a relevant phrase?
Well, we have currently we have 3 levels of certification, and there are links in the description if you want to check out like our entry level, like starting point in our certification program. And at the highest level, which requires, right, the first 2, one of the things we do is demonstrations, and then we dissect. Right. So we're in a group together, we do demos of the processes, and then we have discussions around them. Crazy valuable. And we were dissecting a demo between 2 of our coaches. And I texted you because I wasn't sure how it was going to land with anybody else initially. And I said, he coaches like a client.
Ah, that's right. Yep. You could see the distinction. It was so clear to you. You go, he coaches like a client.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really powerful and super intriguing phrase. And obviously for you to even be able to see it is only because you've talked to so many coaches and you've gone through the process so often that you can recognize the distinction between somebody who coaches like a client versus coaches like a coach.
Yeah.
Go ahead, continue if there's more to that. That's really powerful.
It was, it was really profound for me because it landed with me in a way that it had never landed with me before, to be able to actually recognize there are tangible things that I can notice and see because I coach like a client as well. And there's a difference. And then I started to think about the coaches who you coach, that I know, who we coach, the people that I coach who are coaches. And then I started, you know, that's how the brain works, right? I started to look for in other people, are there similarities? Was this just a one-off thing? Or is there actually common elements and ingredients of somebody who does this? And my answer to that is yes. I recognize there are different qualities, and some of them are tangible, and then different energies to people who coach like a client, so much so that there's an integrity piece to being a coach, right? To being to selling something, like to being a product of the product that you're selling. But there's also in terms of your ability to be successful in your marketing, in your sales, in your magnetism, there's something that is different, that is palpable when you are coaching like a client versus coaching from the just only, because it's not either or, it's both, just only the seat of I consumed this information as a student, I'm a product of the training versus a product of the process.
Yeah, that's all so profound. And so you've identified 4 as of now, maybe there will be more as we discuss it, but you've identified 4 very distinguishable elements and skills, but like essential skills, you know, skills of essence that you recognize when people coach like a client. So let's break down those 4.
Yeah. The first one is like empathy, but not manufactured empathy. It's like embodied empathy. There's and not because you recognize like the same details in somebody, but when you've been in that seat, when you've been the person who's been sharing and giving voice to your fears, your insecurities, your doubts, the things that you're struggling with, the parts of you that maybe you don't want anybody else to know about, when you've given voice to that and been that person doing that expression, you are able to show up for people and energetically like advocate for them while also making it without even, because you don't even have to say it. Like there's just this way that you empathize with them because you know what it's like to do what your clients are doing. You know in your cells what it's like to be that person, to say those words for the very first time.
So
and it connects you to your moment.
Yeah, that is empathy. You just spoke to what the essence of empathy is. The essence of empathy is shared experience. And when we try to manufacture empathy and we don't recognize a shared experience, it's going to be impossible. But we all know, like, we should empathize with people, or we should try to understand, but it's like neurologically impossible. Part of what provides empathy is the human journey. So we might have a shared experience of grief, or a shared experience of going through certain human experiences, dealing with failure, creating success in a certain industry or whatever. But then I think what you're speaking to is another kind of empathy, which is empathy of the coaching process. So for you to be able to empathize, and then you use a really important word, advocacy, advocate. You can advocate because of the empathy. You can't advocate with empathy of a coaching process that you haven't experienced, if empathy requires a shared experience. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, when I say coaching process, I don't mean a specific example or exercise, rather. I don't mean a specific exercise. Like, in order to do this particular exercise on guilt and shame, or in order to do timeline therapy or something like that, you have to have the exact same shared experience within that exercise or within that specific tool. Although that does happen, we end up getting really attached to the things that have fundamentally changed our life, which is natural. But I'm talking about just the process of going through coaching. So what that could look like is, if you've been on the other side of being coached, if you've been a client and a coach has asked you a really powerful question that caused you to contemplate, that caused you to tear up, that caused you to distract, that caused you to be silent for 2 minutes, whatever the process was for you. And then maybe it caused you to think about the question for the next several days. And it caused you to come back to your next coaching session and go, this is what I've been thinking about. If all of that has happened to you as a client, then as a coach, you can sit with the silence. You can sit with the tears that might be produced. You can sit with the distractions. You can sit with ending a coaching session and not feeling like you've gotten full completion on this issue, because you didn't have full completion on the issue. And it took you some days to think about it before it came back. So if you don't have that embodied experience as a client, then you can't recognize it in other people's journeys because it's not shared. And so many people are in the commoditization of coaching. So many people are just trying to get to the point where they can just learn some information and teach some information and have some coaching tools and know that every time I'm going to do this tool, it's going to produce this outcome. Every time I'm going to ask this question, it's going to give that answer. That's the modular learning. That's the linear path that our brains literally want to be true. But that's not the journey of human growth. So if we've experienced that as a client, then we will recognize it in our clients when we become coaches. And we can't overstate this point, the essence of rooted certainty, rooted confidence, where you know what this was like when you went through it, so you can hold the space to facilitate somebody else going through it. And what I really want to make clear is when you get to that place, details don't have to match.
No.
So you can help somebody going through a divorce without ever going through a divorce. You don't have to be married. You can help somebody dealing with grief related to a child and not ever have children yourself. You can help people go through the human experience of details and not have the shared experience of the details, but you have the shared experience of the journey because you've gone through grief with a pet or with losing a job or with death of somebody else. You've gone through what it looks like to question your validity, to question your worth, to question your value, even though the application of those lessons are different. And this is also something that stops a lot of coaches from feeling confident, is because they think they can't help somebody through the details that they haven't experienced. And what you and I have both learned, this is one of the biggest realizations I had after a few years of deep coaching experience, is that a lot of times we can actually help people more if we can hold the space from the rooted certainty, but we don't have that shared detail. A lot of times we can actually help people more because we have a new perspective that they don't have. Whereas if you and I both share the experience of divorce, let's say, and I'm trying to coach you as a client, but I'm still coming from my perspective, especially if it's a wounded perspective of my divorce experience, then I might jump in and give you my solutions, or I might direct you in a certain way because my wounds are in control or my lack of healing is in control. And I could actually be doing you a disservice if I try to direct your journey based on what my shared experiential journey has been, if the details are the same. That doesn't mean that that will always happen, meaning that if you have a detailed experience that's the same as your client, that you can't help them. That's not what I'm saying. But it's actually the opposite of what a lot of people think, that if you don't have shared detailed experience, sometimes you can help people more, but at the very least, you can absolutely help them if you have shared human experience, and especially if you have shared client experience, meaning you know what it's like to be on the client side of that process. So again, this is like such a deep conceptual understanding that we've learned the value of looking back. I don't know how many coaches I've had. I don't know how many seminars I've attended. You don't know the details of all the coaching hours and the people and the seminars and the discussions and all that stuff. So we're not able to quantify each one of our steps. But when we look back with what we're now calling looking back wisdom, what do we recognize as one of the things that actually gives us confidence as a coach that then translates into attraction, that then translates into clients, that then translates into income, that then translates into the experience of success as a business? It's coaching like a client. That's so profound. And I'm glad you shared the story of you recognizing, and then as you said, texting me like, oh, this is one of those clients. This is one of those people who are going through the process because I can see that. And so for somebody like you, who've, one of our mentor coaches and in these conversations all the time, to be able to clearly recognize people who coach like clients versus people who coach like, what would be the opposite of that? Not clients is the simplest one, but people who coach like.
Yeah, like they've just gone through the certifications, right? Like people who coach like a coach, like a certified,
or like just a student, or someone just going through the motions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it's either or, like it's both, right?
Correct.
This person has gone through our certifications. I've gone through our certifications, right? Like you've gone to, we don't even have the numbers on exactly how many certifications and trainings, and you put yourself in the work. And it's not just in the actual coaching session, it's also in the sales call. It's also in your marketing because you understand the process you went through to buy. I understand that some people make immediate decisions and some people don't. I understand that it's not about me because anytime I've ever paused on a decision, it's never been about the other person. It's always been about me as the purchaser. And so recognizing all of that has just allowed me to be able to relax inside of the process because I know my moment of making the biggest investment I made in coaching. And I know that took time. So I don't stress out. I don't tell myself stories about what they're doing or what they're thinking because I know what I was doing and what I was thinking. And I might be wrong about that, but I'll tell you what, Sean, my stories of my actual lived experience, they make me feel better because it wasn't that I wasn't interested. I was interested. I was trying to figure some things out, or I needed a minute to get the money together. Right. And so all of that just allowed me to relax and then not stress out and put unnecessary pressure on my prospects because I could also empathize with the buying experience of coaching as well. So it happens even before we get into the relationship of officially coaching.
Yeah, that's so big. You made a statement the other day that if people would recognize that piece, that before they purchased certain programs or hired certain coaches, there were a lot of other things they looked into. There was time, there were conversations that they had to have. And yet so many coaches are expecting people to hire them after like one Facebook post or one email or one article. And that's not how we bought as buyers. Yet that's what we expect the buying process to be as sellers.
Right.
And that's just crazy to think about that, especially in today's world with so many distractions.
Yeah. And another thing that I noticed really connects to the first thing of empathy is just we hold space differently. And that's a phrase, right? Like hold space that I think is pretty common inside of the coaching or personal development industry, but it's super vague, right? Like, how do you do, like, is it this? Like, am I doing it right? Like, right? Like
grab space, grab it, and you hold it. And you got to make sure that your fingers are like, like, don't let anything. So it's like this.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then hold it.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was something that I heard and I didn't actually, like, I didn't get it until I was held. Right. There's a way that we show up for our clients in those moments of vulnerability, of transparency, where we are creating that empathy. There's a shift when we know what it's like to have somebody put up like I think about like, it's like a dance space, right? Like they put up the borders for us to kind of swim around in and figure out our stuff. When I had somebody like hold space for me until I learned how to do that in my own self and my own journey, that gave me that experience of feeling like feeling safe and feeling held while I went through this process. And because of that, I'm able to do that for other people in a different way that can only happen. And I feel it in the people that hold space. I feel it from you, right? As a coach, you hold space in that way because it's been held for you. And when it hasn't been, when you haven't put yourself in that position where you just surrender so that you do need somebody else to hold the space, then there is no step-by-step how-to guide on how to do that. Because it's not just about being quiet. It's not just about saying like, or not saying that. There's nothing tangible. It's an energetic essence that is the result, right? It's a byproduct of the empathy and the conversation we were just having a moment ago.
Yeah. And it's one of the most common pieces of feedback that we hear in our communities when we do dissect the coaching is there's an essence where the client didn't feel rushed. The client felt held or safe, or just that there wasn't extra pressure put on, like, answer this question. You got to go through this. And to your point, it can only happen, through the process of this shared experience. And when you were talking about the sales process, you'll write an article or you'll have a coaching call with somebody, and you now know, because of your buying process, of what they might be going through. And I think the critical thing, or one of the critical things to recognize there, is then instead of you sitting there and chasing them or waiting and constantly checking your emails or DMs, you stay in motion. And while you stay in motion, then you're still producing things, or you're still holding other calls, and you're still going while certain people are going through whatever their buying process is, which, as the creator, as the business owner, that's so huge. So many of us stop the production or stop the building or the creating because we're desperately waiting for somebody to tell us yes, or desperately waiting, for them to say no, or we're rushing the process or what have you. So I think that's a really important piece, that a lot of us stop our motion because we're not having that empathetic understanding of what other people might be going through.
And we don't give them space.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We throw the space back at them. We don't hold it. We throw it.
Right.
Is there a version of hot potato space?
Exactly.
That's really what it is. Like, this space is uncomfortable, so get out of here.
Take it back.
Yeah.
Or I just try to climb in your space with you, right? Like, I get in your space because I don't want to be in my own.
Yeah. And we don't advocate the transformation. We don't advocate in that regard, somebody moving through whatever it is that they're moving through.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the dissection of these processes and exercises, which, as you said, is one of the most valuable things that we can do. And we offer that in our membership program. So any of you that are interested in that level of dissection, or that type of dissection, then check out our membership options and see if that's a good next step for you. All right. Number 2 is what?
Powerful questions. There's a different quality in the questions that are asked when you've been asked powerful questions. And some of it is like straight up, repurposing, right? Like, my coach asked me that, and that just changed my life. So I'm about to ask anybody that gets in my space,
Right.
the same question, because when I was being coached as a client, I was being coached by somebody who it wasn't a peer. Peer coaching is important. And it's not the same thing as paying somebody who's at a different place on your journey than you are, to be able to offer a perspective that you don't have.
All right, let's time out there. Not because your dog started barking, but let's at least highlight this. We're not trying to do this for shame reasons, but getting coached by a professional coach who you are paying for is different than just getting coached by your peers, for a few reasons that I can think of immediately. Number one, that coach doesn't have the same level of confidence or certainty or experience if they're going through the same process that you're going through. That's not to dismiss the power of peer coaching, because that's built into our programs. That is an important part of the process. But I think what you see a lot is some people expect the outcomes of professional coaching to come from peer coaching. And number one, you're you're coaching with somebody that's just at a different part of their journey. But number two, you're not paying for it.
Right.
And when you're paying for something, there's a different level of energy that you show up with as the client. So even if the same coaching skill were to transfer, meaning peer coaching that you're not paying for with somebody that's the exact same skill set as somebody that you're paying, you'll probably get more out of paying for the coaching. And that's just part of, again, human nature. Like without an investment of time and energy and money and importance, there's got to be some level of inconvenience, and paying money is a sort of inconvenience. It's a type of inconvenience. Without that kind of investment, you won't be in the same state of learning or the same state as the client. And we're not saying that as some sales tactic to try to get you to pay for our coaching. If it's not us, like, go somewhere. But what we're telling you is, as a human on your journey, especially if you want to be a coach, if you're not paying for coaching, your journey will go slower. That's not theory. That's 20 plus combined years of looking back and not only seeing what works for people that are coming through our programs or people that we're talking to that are in other programs, or just understanding the industry, but also our own lives. Like, I recognize the times in my life where I didn't have the support. A lot of times is because I was trying to cut back on expenses while things were, falling in my life. And I didn't have the connection. And so, left to my own devices, I was making choices from a wounded perspective, or from an amateur perspective, or from just a perspective that couldn't see the answer. And that actually created more of a challenge in my life, right? So this is personal experience, but also the evolution of coaches. And it actually is very clear when we take a look at people, whether they've come through our program or anybody else's, when we take a look at people that succeed, whether it's business success or just success in confidence and certainty, or whatever measurement of success, part of the ingredients, I think, for everybody, I can't think of a single person right now. Part of the ingredient is people that are willing to pay for coaching. And I think part of that is just an unconditional commitment that if this is what it's going to take, then I'm going to do it. But if you have conditional commitment that your journey as a coach has to be free, and think about that for a second. Your journey as a coach needs to be free or really low level dollars, but then you want people to pay you. There's an energetic mismatch there that is just reality. Again, this is not some philosophical or Jedi mind trick sales tactic that we're using. We're just telling you what we see. And it's not the act of paying for a coach or the amount of money that you pay for a coach. It's the commitment underneath the decision to pay for a coach, and then the journey of growth that will provide. We're just telling you what we've learned.
And it's not just us. I mean, you shared with me about a conversation that you had with somebody who is taking a lot of action, right? Somebody that's a friend of both of ours that is taking a lot of action in his business, being super bold. And what did you say? That he said that he finally invested enough money to take himself seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a jaw-dropping comment.
Yeah.
Because he is a phenomenal leader and influencer already. And I said, what's the change? And he said exactly that. I'm finally investing enough to take myself seriously. Oh, so good. The third one, you've already spoken to this a little bit, which is space holding. So you want to break that down maybe a little bit more?
I mean, it would just be like a repeat really of what I said earlier.
Okay.
Like it's just it's how we show up energetically. It's our comfort in the silence, because we've been inside of our own silence, right? Like when we're comfortable with our space internally, then we're able to give that out to other people.
Yeah. And I think, so a word that's super clear to me right now in this conversation, and it's a word that we use quite a bit when it comes to coaching, is facilitation. We're
Yeah.
facilitating transformation. We're not directing transformation. We're not forcing transformation. We're not doing transformation for other people. Transformation can only happen in the person that's going through the process. The coach cannot provide the transformation. The coach cannot predict the
Right.
transformation, but the coach can hold the space and facilitate what's necessary for the client to transform inside of the container. And if we have gone through all the things that we're talking about, then it'll be easier for us to be comfortable with that container and hold the space inside the container for the client to make the shifts and the realizations and the awareness and, all that stuff that is required, because we're holding the space inside of facilitation.
For the time, right? Like not even just for the moments inside of the session, right? Like a lot of times I think we hear space holding and we think about it like in the moment where the person is being vulnerable or they're expressing or they're going through the process, but we hold space for the journey of transformation because we know it's not personal development. So we hold space for that journey, which that leads to the fourth thing, which is we trust ourselves. We trust our clients. There's a different level of embodied certainty in knowing when I recognize that I had my own answers, right? When I recognize that no coach that I hired gave me anything other than the ability to open up my perspective, that all of my solutions actually did come from me internally, that took the principle that we teach in our coaching certification programs, that the person who has the problem has the solution. That took that concept from like, oh, I know that, to I know it. I didn't just get it. Like I got it. Because I was like, I got it. Right. I did it. And when I recognized I did it, it just allowed me to just trust them that they could do it too, that they had it. I know that they have their answers because I know I had mine. I know that I had mine, and it allowed me to then trust in myself as the coach to facilitate, right, based on what you were just saying. It allowed me to be able to facilitate at such a powerful level because I didn't need to be the deliverer of their answers because I knew in my cells that I didn't have them.
Yeah, I get it and I got it. Or I get it transforming into I got it, I think is extremely powerful.
Absolutely.
The personal development is so real. So here's what was really interesting as we were dissecting this earlier. When it comes to trust, most of us are searching for trust externally. Meaning, if we don't trust ourselves, then we want to trust that we know what other people are going to do. We want to trust that people won't lie to us. We want to trust that people won't leave us in relationships. We want to trust that people will buy our products before we offer it to them. We want to trust the looking forward success that we're looking for, right? And we want to trust that we're not going to experience any of the negative stuff that we don't want to experience. So what's so interesting to me is, and we don't believe that that's the actual way to live life, in sourcing our trust in other people. So that's how most of us are approaching personal trust, is we're seeking it in others. But then when it comes to what we're talking about here, seeking trust in others is actually the answer, is actually the empowered answer. But in this case, we want to get it from ourselves. And what I mean by that is trusting that the client has the answers is so much easier and more powerful and better for the clients than needing to trust ourselves to have the answers to their questions or to their problems. So we're backwards in both, on both journeys. Like when trust externally is the wrong thing to do, that's what we look for. When trust externally is the right thing to do, that's what we run from. We're backwards. And so in the coaching reality, especially deep work coaching, there's a healthy trust that we actually get from others because they do know the answers. And then what we can trust for ourselves is not to know the answers, not to direct the outcome, not to have the micro and macro direction, like what you were talking about earlier. So it's not just our facilitating or holding space inside of the coaching call, but it's the whole process of transformation. That's much bigger than our individual coaching calls. So there's a macro desire that we have, and then there's this micro desire that we have. So the counter-intellectual truth is that when we trust the client to come up with the answers, then all we need to trust ourselves to do is to ask the questions and hold the space and to facilitate. And that does a couple things. Number one, it lowers the pressure on ourselves to be able to show up with all the trust and all the answers and make sure that everybody gets a breakthrough inside of 30 minutes or inside of a month or whatever our version of the timeline should be. But because it lowers the pressure, the second thing happens, which is we become infinitely better coaches. So the client has better experiences because we've actually reduced our own internal pressure and opened up this expansive space for the client to have breakthroughs and for the client to have transformation and for the client to have awarenesses and realizations and connecting dots that the client will remember. One of the worst things we can do as coaches is give people our answers to their problems for a couple of reasons. Number one, it might not match what they would say, but because we're in a position of influence or authority, they might just take it. You know, and a lot of people actually emotionally want to, they seek approval from coaches. They want to impress their coaches, or they want to be seen as doing the right thing, you know, from their coaches. So a lot of times the client might go, okay, is that what I'm supposed to think? Is that my answer? Okay, then I'll take that as my answer and then just claim it when it actually wasn't their answer. And the other thing is clients usually won't remember solutions that didn't come from them. You know, they might write it down and try to remember what their coach said to them, or they might write it on their phone or something. But the most powerful solutions come from inside the client. Just like our most powerful solutions are going to come from realizations we had. They might have been catalyzed by powerful questions from a coach holding space who had a shared experience. And so they had the empathy, but we had the awareness. We had the internal breakthrough. We had the shift internally created by what we've been talking about, the space holding and the facilitation and so forth. So the good news is the easier way to coach is actually the better way to coach. And way too many people are putting so much pressure on themselves that's actually creating more of a challenge in tangible ways and intangible ways. But the bless our heart realization is like, we're doing it wrong both ways. Like we're seeking trust in the wrong areas both ways. When we should be seeking it internally, we source it externally. When we should be seeking it externally, we try to source it internally. And surprise, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't get to that place that they're trying to get to, especially with coaching, and create true rooted confidence and certainty.
So I have to trust myself enough to trust you. And the reason that I think I have to be your answer is because if I don't trust myself, I'm looking to other people to be my answer. So because that's what I'm doing, I believe it's what they're doing. I just saw that, like when you were talking.
Say that again.
Okay.
Because that's what I'm doing. That's what I believe they're doing.
Yeah. So if I don't trust myself, right, and I'm looking toward other people to give me my answers, right, then
you think that's what they're doing.
Then I'm only going to project that onto them.
Yeah.
There's no other option. So when I did the work as a client, and I did the work, and I really trusted this, I trusted her, I trusted myself, I trusted my body, I was good, then I projected that onto them as well, which allowed me to give them the space to do their work. I didn't try to be their solution because I knew that I was mine. And you can't fake this, you guys. This is not, I mean, you could try, go ahead, but you can't do it. Like, this is not a module. This is not oh, well, I'm going to get to this advanced level and then I'm going to get this thing. This is not a box to check. This is not something that you get. It's something that you got. And there's only one way to do that. And for the way I spend my money, I have attended countless certifications and trainings. Okay. The best investment I make in my clients is in the personal coaches I hire for myself.
That's such a profound statement. The best investment I make in my clients is my own private coaching. And that's because that investment is increasing the value of the product that you're then giving your clients, and the value of the outcome, and the value of increasing space holding and empathy and all the things that we've been talking about. I think that's a really important way to see how connected the investments that we make in our own personal journey as the client of the coach becomes the investment as the coach in the client. And how many coaches are expecting clients to make investments in them, in the coach, but the coach isn't making the investment in the client. And this is one of those investments. There are a few others, actually learning who the client is and understanding what they're going through, and, creating a shared experience of their perspective, but increasing the value of the product that you're offering the client is an extremely valuable investment in the client. I think that's so profound of a statement. To highlight what you were saying a moment ago, that again, I think is really critical, is that if I think that other people need to have my answers, then I'm going to think I need to have other people's answers. And the pressure that creates on the coach is disastrous for a lot of people. And because we don't believe that we have everybody's answers for all the questions that they'll have, then we won't have internal permission to get in motion and share our message and keep doing the things that are actually going to lead to people hiring us. So as always, we want to invite you to book a free consultation if any of this is landing and you want some personalized support. This journey is just so individual, and yet most people are not giving themselves the individual attention or intention and support to go through the individual journey. Way too many people are just trying to put themselves through this assembly line approach. And so there's a link in the description where you can book a free consultation and get our support, whether it's internal, external, any piece of this journey for yourself. And the more that you experience as a client, as we've been talking about, the more value you're going to have as a coach. Now, if you like this video, check out that video right there. I'm going to give you 11 deep dive coaching techniques. You want to be a language cop. You want to be so locked on to their language that you see the words in between the words, that you hear the things that they're not saying, that you're listening